o'clock. We'll continue with the regular meeting of council and reporting out from our closed session. We adopted the minutes of the June 21st closed session of this year. And the second item we dealt with was under section 239, paragraph 2, subsection B, personal matters about identifiable individuals. And that was interview for both the position of Director of Finance and also for the manager of the Vanastra Early Childhood Learning Center. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. I don't really have any remarks at this time. Under land acknowledgement, we would like to acknowledge that the land we stand upon today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Neutral peoples. Can I get a mover and a seconder to confirm the agenda? Moved by Councillor McClellan, second by Councillor On, that the agenda for the council meeting be confirmed as presented. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Is there any disclosure or pecuniary interest from any member of council this evening? Seeing none, thank you. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the minutes of the previous meetings of June 21st and 23rd? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Steffler. And those would be the regular meeting minutes of June 21st of 2022 and the special meeting on June 23rd of 2022. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Public meetings, hearings, and delegations. Tonight we have a delegation, Nancy Johnson, McSweeney and Associates, the Huron East Economic Development Strategic Plan. So Nancy, I will turn this over to you.
Thanks very much. Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. On behalf of the team of McSweeney Associates, I would like to present to you your economic development strategy. So I'm going to share it with you. And we'll go over the presentation. So I just wanted to say that this plan is a result of significant input over the past 5 months from staff, council, and key stakeholders in the community. This strategic plan will guide you through the next 5 years on your road to achieving greater economic investment in Huron East. So in the past, there's been great things happening in Huron East in the area of economic development, and a dedicated staff and past council set in place a number of initiatives. Huron East is now in an enviable position. You're ending one chapter and beginning a new one. So where is Huron East today? Huron East is in a strategic position with an opportunity to start fresh. There's a new economic development strategic plan that's been laid out for the next 5 years. You're going to be able to build a foundation to be ready for investment and economic development. And there's an opportunity to focus on all businesses in Huron East. Just to review the process that we followed over the past 5 months, we started off with the document review. Brad took us on a great community tour, and we created a community profile for you. We also developed a situational analysis report, which gives you a very detailed look at your community. We did a number of consultations through online survey, interviews, focus groups, and a working session. We did a strategic action planning session, and just a couple weeks ago, there was a special council presentation. And then finally, we completed the economic development strategic plan. As I said, we have completed the community profile and situational analysis, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to look through that and get a better understanding of your community. As for consultations, we did do confidential one-on-one interviews, an online survey. We did focus groups, and we also did a working session. And I have to say that we had about 60 stakeholders that were consulted. It was a real reflection of Huron East. We spoke with the mayor and council, economic development committee, Huron East senior staff, We had great discussions with Huron County Economic Development and Planning. You also had regional organizations representing agriculture, community business and labor, and also local businesses representing manufacturing, service retail, transportation, farms, agriculture support, and businesses within downtown Brussels, downtown Seaforth, and businesses in the tourism sector. And through that, we did complete the economic development strategic plan for Huron East, and that's a 5-year plan. So what happened is, based on the discussions and research, we agreed to 3 goals that needed to be addressed in order to move the economic development agenda forward and help to bring investment to Huron East. The first one is to better understand what economic development entails and collectively work towards Huron East being investment ready. The second one is effectively building positive relationships through productive communication and collaboration with the business community and various levels of government. And the third goal is about building Huron East business retention program and supporting local business. So when we look at goal number 1 about understanding economic development, it's really business investment consists of understanding the current state of the business community, as well as a targeted effort to attract new businesses. Huron East needs to be ready to capitalize on potential investment. So through that, we developed 3 actions. And those 3 actions are, first of all, hiring an economic development professional. You need somebody that's going to be able to implement the plan that's now in place. The second one is about undertaking investment readiness, coaching and training. And this would be for staff, elected officials, and any other relevant stakeholders that are involved in economic development. The third one is about undertaking an investment readiness action plan. And that would entail the community profile, which needs to be updated annually, inventories of land and businesses, updating the website, the community improvement plan, targeting a target sector analysis, business mix analysis, and competitive land analysis. Sounds like a lot, but it really builds up foundation for economic development in Huron East. The second goal is about building positive relationships and collaborating, and really looking at that vibrant community, working to nurture the business climate. So creating a community that has a necessary infrastructure and regulatory environment for businesses to succeed, and building that solid foundation for business to thrive. So under goal 2, there are 6 actions. These 6 actions are doable and realistic, and they can be completed in the next 5 years. So the first one is about creating a database of businesses and making sure that that database includes all local businesses, names and information of owners and managers, and whatever other information you can include. It's really important to understand your business community. The second one is about building relationships, and these building relationships to support business. So building these relationships between Huron East and Huron County, Huron Chamber of Commerce, Seaforth BIA, Ontario's West Coast Tourism, and other local, other organizations that support local business. It's also about establishing a program that brings business together. So this is network opportunities to facilitate networking and collaboration between businesses. The next one is about developing a program to welcome new business. We found that there was a lot of discussion about the need to welcome these new businesses into the community. And the next one is about marketing the strengths of Huron East, and this is for business investment. So this can be for through means of media, including print and electronic. The third goal is about building a Huron East business retention program that supports local business. As we know, about 70 to 80% of investment in a community is through existing businesses, either growing or expanding those businesses. And potentially there are businesses that need need to or are interested in coming into the community that also support your local businesses. So really having that supportive business environment is really important to keep those businesses loyal to the community, and keeping businesses in Huron East really helps to ensure that the businesses will thrive and grow. So under the third goal, there are 9 actions that we've come up with. The first one is about establishing and implementing a business visitation program. So this is really meeting with your local businesses and really having a good understanding of what the business community and what the businesses have and need and are looking for from you. And it's also important to track that business visitation program. The other thing through that business visitation program is really, if there's any issues with any businesses, to really quickly address these issues as fast as you can, because business works differently than government, so they expect things fairly quickly. The next is about communicating business successes and also sharing those with Huron East Council, staff, and Huron County EDO, so that everybody knows what businesses are out there. The third one is about working with local business organizations to establish a Shop Local campaign. And obviously that is to continue to support your local businesses. The fourth is updating and promoting that business directory on the website. So you've gone out, you've met with those businesses, make sure that the information, the pertinent information is in that business directory and that it's on the website and that it's kept current and updated. The fifth one is about considering a vacant building bylaw. There's a number of buildings that are vacant, so that would be an opportunity to try to get those businesses to fill up rather than sitting vacant. The seventh goal is about being a conduit with Huron County Small Business Development Corporation for succession planning. There was a lot of discussion about businesses that had not done any succession planning and were possibly going to be retiring. So instead of losing those businesses, work with them to see if you can see if Huron County SBDC can find somebody to take those businesses over. The eighth one is about directing local business to digital business support programs. Currently, there's a digital Main Street program that's become a very popular and very well used. And so that's a program that's happening right now, but in the future, there may be other ones. So just continue to direct those local businesses to those digital business support programs. Advocating for local businesses by providing information for grant opportunities. That's just making sure that if you know about any grant opportunities that are coming through, that you provide that information to the local businesses. The next one is about opportunities to increase local labor force. So it's not anything specific, but it's really just making sure that anything that you're doing, such as, that can increase local labor force, including housing, government programming, attraction and retention of residents, all that stuff is in place, and that will help support and increase local labor force. The 11th action is really about strengthening your downtown cores. And these are specifically Brussels and Seaforth, your two downtowns. Both of them sort of offer something different, and they have a different sort of feel for they have a different sort of feel. So I guess the first thing is just an overall action is developing stronger bylaws around ground floor conversions and making sure that there's opportunity for commercial businesses to be able to go on the ground floor, and that any residential is on the second floor or in other locations. So the first one with regards to Brussels is around considering the development of a Brussels BIA, business improvement area. The second one is about supporting the existing community improvement plan, which already is in place, and businesses just promoting that and making sure the businesses take advantage of that. The third one is about working with the building owners to convert that ground floor residential to commercial, because again, if there's residential on the main floor or on the ground floor, then there's not a lot of opportunity for commercial businesses to come in. So that's important. The second part is about Seaforth and downtown Seaforth, and just really continuing to support Seaforth BIA. The next one is about reviewing existing bylaws that are within the BIA and making sure that they're enforced and enforced. So the next one is about updating the 2009 Heritage Conservation District in Seaforth. It's a beautiful community, and you just want to make sure that that Heritage Conservation District is updated. And the next is about increasing tourism. So there already is a Huron County gateway and wayfinding signage program. So it's really implementing that. You don't have to start your own, but just working with Huron County to get a gateway and wayfinding signage program in place in Huron East. The second one is developing an inventory of tourism assets. And the next one is promoting those tourism assets through electronic and print options, and also working with the local tourism organizations. The fourth one is about determining or undertaking a feasibility study to determine if there's opportunities for tourism accommodations first before you jump in and start attracting accommodations to the area. And the last part is about strengthening the agricultural sector. It's a really strong sector in your area, and there's really a need to strengthen those relationships and start building a really comprehensive understanding of the agricultural sector. And that can be done through the business visitation program. So make sure that you include the agricultural sector as well. The second part is about determining the best suited spin-off businesses in Huron East for the agricultural sector. So when you work on your target sector analysis, make sure that you include the agricultural sector. And the last one is about engaging the farm community in discussions impacting their farm operations. So just make sure they're included, get their input, just like you've done for the strategic plan. It's really important, and they can provide you with a lot of information. And the last part is about collaborating with Huron County. You're lucky that you're part of Huron County. It has an established economic development program already, and you don't want to be duplicating what they're doing already, but just working with them. So the county already does entrepreneur programs. They've got a digital service squad that can help your businesses out. They have a home childcare development program, the West Coast Signage Program, immigration partnerships. They already do a business success story. They do business success stories, so you can tap into that. A business map, business support newsletters, COVID-19 support, and a new to Huron newcomer settlement and healthcare. And I put all these in because these are all things that were discussed during the consultation process. But again, you don't want to have that necessarily in your strategy when it's already being done by Huron County. So really just work with them on these. They are great assets to have, and a great source of information. And the next part is about Huron County, the planning department, because again, you have a really strong planning agency for Huron East in Huron County, and you have a really positive working relationship with the planning staff. So again, continue working with the planning staff on planning applications for Huron East, understand the Huron County application process, and also work with Huron County planning staff to provide policies around development charges for Huron East. So these may be things that you're already doing, but it's really to continue to do this because it's important. You're a small community within a larger one, so take advantage of what they're doing. So there are a lot of actions within the strategy. It is over 5 years, but what has been done is that we picked out the top 5 strategic actions that need to be done to sort of build that foundation for your economic development program. The first one is recruiting an economic development professional. The second one is undertaking an investment readiness coaching and training exercise. The third one is to continue building relationships. The fourth one is about creating and continually updating that database of businesses, and then developing an inventory of available properties. So where does Huron East go from here? The next thing that we're going to be working on is an implementation plan, which is going to be taking each one of the actions, and I'll be working with Brad on this to set out each action, determine who the lead is on it, who supports, because it's not all Huron East that's going to be doing every one of these actions. You've got lots of partners out there. Determining what the estimated resources are, sort of steps to completing the action, and then the timing. So we'll be looking at sort of immediate, short-term, long-term, that sort of thing over the next 5 years. The other thing that we're going to be doing with Brad is we're going to be meeting to discuss sort of the skills and background required for the economic development professional that you're going to be bringing in. So this is your strategic plan. It's based on your community's input. We want to thank you for choosing McSweeney and Associates to develop your unique strategic plan. We're available anytime that you require anything further. This isn't the end. We're happy to help you out over the next, when you're working through this implementation plan and the strategy. Our relationship just continues with you after today. So we really wish you great success in the implementation of the strategic plan. It's really been a pleasure working with you and your community. So are there any questions?
Thank you very much for that presentation, Nancy. There was a lot of information in the document that you gave us. I mentioned to the CAO this afternoon that I was almost overwhelmed sitting down just trying to get through it all and how to parse everything together. There was one thing that really shocked me in the information, and we hear all the time that businesses do not have enough employees, but I was really shocked to see that for the number of available jobs, when I say available, it's ones that are currently filled and also ones that businesses believe they need to fill. When you take both those numbers together, there was actually more employees in Huron East than are actually required by all the businesses in Huron East. And I found that really surprising. So what it really tells me is that our workforce is migrating out to work outside of the municipality. And although I was always concerned about when businesses are complaining that they didn't have enough of a workforce, that the last thing we wanted to be doing was bringing in another company, because I didn't want a new company. First of all, I figured any new company coming in would do their research and see how many employees were technically available for them. But I didn't want them robbing employees from the current businesses that are here. But when I see those numbers, I guess my question really would almost go back to the Huron East employers, is that what is it we're not doing to keep people working in Huron East? Like, are we not paying enough? What is it that makes people migrate out of the municipality, or is it just the wrong sectors? But it kind of looked like across the board that we just had more people available than was actually required. I didn't know if you had any comeback on that one.
It may just do that the types of jobs that are available are not the same jobs that the people that are in the community are interested in working in. That's all I can think of.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a good maybe that's something that when you go to do that business visitation program, that's something that you start asking them. What kind of people are you looking for? What kind of employees do you need? And start matching them possibly with your population. But it's a great question to ask the businesses.
Like, I think there was one other page, if I remember correctly, that when it talked about all the different categories, it looked like almost every category there was some sort of business, whether it was healthcare or general laborers or whatever that were needed right across the municipality. But so I understand what you're saying, although it looked like every category we could have had more. So I'm assuming in every category we've got people working outside the municipality. But
Yeah,
again,
definitely.
that ended up being a shocker to me. I was surprised when I saw that number.
Mhm.
Questions from members of council? Wow, I am really surprised. There was a lot of information there.
Again, if anybody has any, in the, the next, whatever, few months, we're still going to be working with Brad on this implementation plan as well. But if there's any questions, feel free to, contact us or.
Okay. Councillor Chartrand.
Yes, thank you. So I guess to Brad and to Nancy, so whenever we do, Brad, hire our economical development officer, is Nancy and her group going to work with that new person to go over the strategic plan?
You want to take a kick at that one, Nancy, or do you want me to answer?
Well, we could negotiate something if you'd like.
Yeah.
But we will be providing, we'll be working with Brad to just sort of come up with some sort of a job description initially, regarding sort of what qualities are required, what skills are required, and that sort of thing. That's as far as I think we got for now.
So that wasn't part of the original contract then, Brad?
No, I don't think we didn't negotiate any kind of support, ongoing support to the economic development officer. Although I think, Ian and Nancy probably would be available, if that individual, wanted to understand a specific aspect of the implementation plan or the strategic plan, to clarify what is the intent, what's the mean, what's the means there. I'm sure they'd be available.
Yeah.
If you're going to start getting into developing some of these pieces in terms of, target sector analysis and things like that, those would be new sort of tasks or contracts from that perspective. Does that help, Councillor Chartrand?
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing is whoever the new person is that if they have any questions of understanding the strategic plan, that a phone call to them to clarify what it is or something like that.
Yeah, I think they'd be, I think speaking for Nancy, I think they have no issue with that.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions of members of council? Okay. Seeing none at this time, Nancy, thank you very much for that presentation. Again, that was a lot of information to go through. Yeah, some of it was surprising. So hopefully we can learn from it and hire the right person to fill in for what Huron East is looking for.
Absolutely. There's lots of good economic development officers out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a mover and a seconder to accept the presentation from McSweeney and Associates? Moved by Councillor On, second by Councillor Morrison. That council accept the report from McSweeney and Associates. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. We had nothing under accounts payable. So number 10, reports and recommendations of municipal officers. And I'll turn this over to the CAO.
So the first report's kind of the immediate follow-up. Can you hear me okay? There it goes. On the economic development strategic plan. And there's a couple things, I guess, from what Nancy presented. I won't go through it all over again. You do have, 160 pages worth of information in there. And certainly that's information that, we should be putting up on our website so that it's accessible for there. The community profile is one of those pieces that, potential investors, developers would be interested in. Certainly the situational analysis as well are pieces of information that we can have readily available. I wanted to kind of the piece I think that it's interesting that I take away from the strategic planning process is that there's a lot of information out there, and certainly the county has a lot of programs in place. And unfortunately, I think the connection between what the county is doing and what our business sector is aware of isn't quite there. And I'm not disrespecting the county in terms of that process. It's just sort of an eye-opening exercise for both myself and for our future potential economic development officer, but also for the county, just to make sure that that messaging process in terms of how we're distributing that information out there is certainly needs some improvement, to say the least. The other piece is I think that's really important. And when we look at the implementation plan that I'll be working with Nancy and Ian over the course of the next few weeks, the piece that sticks out to me is that there's a lot of work there for that economic development officer. And I think the one piece I think that's most critical is getting out there and connecting with those businesses and spending that time building that inventory, building those connections, building an understanding of what they do and what they need and what are their struggles. Are they looking at succession planning? All those types of needs and information out there, and build those relationships. And that's going to take, we hire an economic development officer. They're going to be doing that for the next 5 years. It's not going to be something that's going to get done overnight, but I think they really need to connect with those businesses. And that's the most important piece. And so I think when we start looking at that personality characteristic trait, whatever you want to call it, of that individual, that person needs to be outgoing, forward, no issue with cold calling people, knocking on doors, driving in business laneways, whatever it might be, has to be that person that's boots on the ground and wants to be able to get out there and connect with the business community. So other than that, unless there's any more follow-up questions, the motion's there. You've already accepted the economic development strategic plan. The only one is that just want council to direct me to initiate the process to recruit an economic development officer.
Okay, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm, excuse me, very torn on having a full-time economic development officer. I realize initially there's a lot of work to do, but after that, I'm just not sure how busy this person would be. So I think we could have a further discussion about it. The rest of council think about it maybe, and we could discuss this in August or at our next meeting in July, because right now I'm not prepared to agree to a full-time economic person. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Steffler.
Am I good to go there?
There you are.
Yeah. I gotta disagree with Deputy Mayor. There's lots of work out there for economic development officer. Like the size of here in East and whatnot, we got loads of things in business to do. All we gotta do is look at Mitchell and Clinton and look where they're going. And we're sitting there in the center. And we've remained at 2,000 population Seaport for how many years? We've got to do something. And I think getting an economic development officer, and if we get a good one, and I'm sure we will, they will put us back on the map. We're not there now.
Councillor On.
I don't think there is going to be any availability for a part-time economic development officer. I don't think there's anybody looking for that position. They're going to be looking for a full-time position. And there's not really two things that you could merge together that would make it a full-time position that would go with economic development. So I think a full-time economic development officer is really the only option here.
Did you want to comment again, Bob?
Thank you. Good point, Councillor On. That I didn't expand upon my thoughts enough, I guess. When I say part-time, I would consider sharing with another community, Blue Water, South Huron, someone close, so there could be synergies, or a hybrid model, someone who did economic development and some efforts toward recreation. But I totally agree with you. The part-time, I didn't explain myself well enough. Thank you.
I guess my comment would be I have a difference of opinion because I personally believe there's more work there than one person can possibly handle. But we're not of a size where we can justify at this point having more than one person. So I'm quite willing to accept the fact that we would have to get by with one, but to even do some of the things that not only businesses have told us, but even Nancy, through some of the presentations that we did up at the arena and that even when you're doing all your mapping of what you actually have for businesses, available properties, things like that, to stay on top of stuff like that, that's not something that we have enough staff that we can pawn that work off on. That really would be the responsibility of an economic development officer, along with all these other things that have come forward, even just in the presentation today. And I'm going to say that probably the majority of businesses out there, whether they actually need the service or not, would like that hands-on approach from somebody, just to know, have that meet and greet and know that they've got someone they can contact if in fact they needed something. Those businesses are paying the bill, and I think they would appreciate that personal visit, and that's going to take a lot of time, along with a lot of the other things that that need to be accomplished. So I guess my opinion is that we definitely need one. We just unfortunately can't afford more than one at this point to do the job. Mr. McRoberts, I agree with you 100% about being able to get your message out. I've mentioned this at the county before. They have some great programs for small businesses, and they offer about 3 or 4 of these a month traditionally. They used to be in person, and then they went virtual, of course, when COVID come around. But they would have seminars that taught almost everything from simple accounting to how to use Facebook, Twitter. I'm going to say the list was probably about 40 different types of lessons that they would promote. They were free of charge to businesses in the county, but the county didn't do a great job of getting the message out to let businesses know that all these programs were there free of charge for them to listen in on or go and attend. Now, it's not that they didn't have attendance. They would probably get about 30 businesses showing up at each one of these, and not always the same ones. But I think getting the message out, they could have done a lot better, and I think we'll be in the same boat. It'll be important for us to get the message out that if we're offering a service to the businesses in Huron East, we need them to be aware of what it is that we're offering. Councillor Chartrand.
Yes, thank you. Question to Brad. I happen to know, since I was on Jan Hawley's economic development team for 4 years, I'm hoping that you have access to her documentation, because whoever the new person is going to be would be a great advantage, because she had all of the businesses. She had all the empty buildings with square footage and the owners' names of all the buildings. She had all the vacant property. She had all the land that was free and with pictures in Huron East. That's just a wealth of information that a new person would be a benefit to have starting up.
Yeah, certainly that information's there. What format it's actually in, and whether it was done in electronic format, that's a piece I'm not 100% sure. But certainly whatever's there, we're going to make certainly access. It'll all need to be updated, made current. But I still think it's important that this individual get out and boots on the ground and meet with all the businesses in Huron East. And I don't mean just
I agree to that. It's just having the inventory to at least
Oh, yeah,
have it in front of you. You got to admit, I know if I was a new guy coming in, I would be so grateful to have that information as a starting point.
absolutely. Yep.
Any other comments from members of council at this point? Okay. Again, I don't have the actual motions this evening, so I'm not sure if there was an individual motion at this point, or is there just a motion when we get to the end of 10?
Go ahead, Brad, you can.
No, go ahead, Jess.
Oh, I was just going to say there is a motion in regards to the report. So we did pass the first half in accepting the report from McSweeney and Associates. The second half of that motion would be appropriate in this spot where it was just that council and municipality of Huron East direct the CAO to initiate the process to recruit a new economic development officer.
Okay, so I'm assuming, Brad, if I get a mover and a seconder for the motion, that I would say one of the things that kind of came out of the previous presentation and the discussion was we really do need a new job description for this person. That's certainly better detailed than what we had in the past.
Absolutely, yes. And and I don't know whether there's going to be any specific aspects of the job description that are going to be particularly different, but I think it's important for us to make sure that, when we sort of create the job description, which is very kind of bland, but we also want to sort of have some sort of perception, I guess is what I would call it, in terms of what type of a character or characteristic of an individual are we targeting that would be suitable for the next 5 years for the implementation of this plan. And that's probably the more critical pieces. What's that character trait look like?
Okay, I'm going to add one other question to that, Brad. During your hiring process, there were a number of things that council had thought of over the years, but nothing ever happened. We never got around to it. So we gave some specifics of things that we wanted to see within, certain timelines. And I'm going to say, I do believe we've done a very good job of meeting the expectations of that agreement. Would you have any recommendations when you have a job description of things that council should request when we get around to approving the hiring process, I guess?
Yeah, I think that'll get a bit into that implementation plan. And so maybe once that's drafted and that implementation plan will probably set some of those initial goals. I mean, just off the top of my head, the first one that's going to come to my mind is, getting your boots on the ground and going out and meeting the businesses and gathering sort of an inventory of the businesses throughout here in East and get that sort of, strategically, I would say you're not going to just go start banging on doors. You're going to start thinking about all the types of questions and all the types of information you want to try and gather from and make it really streamlined so that when you do go into a business, you're only taking 15, 20 minutes of their time, but you're getting a raft of information and kind of work it from that standpoint. So a bit of legwork, getting prepared, get out there, do that boots on the ground, certainly in terms of, updating, configuring all those new inventories, making them available. Those are going to be the priorities kind of going forward here. Some of the other aspects, I'm not sure where they're going to fit in the implementation timeline, but we can incorporate those as well. But to get back to, I think what you're saying, you want to have sort of that, first 6 months, what are the deliverables that we want to see? And I totally understand what you're trying to get at. And I think that's something that we should include probably for this person, is to make sure that we have some things that we want to get accomplished in those first 6 months.
Yeah, and whether the job can be completed or not, even if there are, whether there are actual jobs that can be done in that short a period of time or not, I think council would be interested in knowing what projects could be started that could get regular updates within that time frame for sure.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, Jessica read the motion. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Deal, second by Councillor On. Are there any other questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Back to you, Brad, for the Canada-wide early learning and childcare.
Yeah, so council is probably all aware, is probably most of Ontario's aware, that the federal government brought in that they call the $10 daycare childcare program in Ontario, and so there's been a lot of questions going out in terms of what does this really actually mean in terms of daycare operation, and what does it mean to families, and there's a lot of families out there, quite frankly, when you watch the news, that are still in that same boat trying to figure out what does this mean. And I think most of them understand what the implication means. It's just more about when is it going to be delivered. So I've worked with Huron County, because they're certainly our funding agency in terms of how we implement this program. It's going to be through Huron County. Just trying to get my head wrapped around myself to understand exactly what the implications mean. So as council knows, we already received a fairly significant portion of our funding through Huron County, which is sort of that provincial funding through childcare. And we have a childcare service agreement already existing with Huron County. In order to maintain stability as the participants transition to this new system, fees were frozen back at the end of March. Not that that really affects us, because we set our fees pretty much annually as part of our fees charges bylaw. But once we enter into that service agreement, then that'll kind of open the doors a little bit more. One of the key goals, I think, of this program was to certainly try to increase registered childhood educator, early childhood educator wages. And that's not so significant for us, because we tend to have wages at a bit of a higher scale than some daycare centers. So the program, in terms of the $10 daycare program, doesn't really affect us from a wage perspective, because we're already exceeding that wage buffer, or that threshold that they're trying to implement in there. So not such a big issue that way, but it is, I would call it a positive move from the standpoint that it will help encourage people to get into the early childhood education programs, and certainly help with some retention and things like that in terms of that program. So I think that's one of the goals they're trying to accomplish, although it has, from a wage perspective, it's not having an impact to Huron East going forward. I suppose you could offer one of the challenges could be the fact that if everybody starts moving their wages up, we might have to move ours up, but we'll wait and see kind of where that goes from here. In terms of the provincial eligibility criteria, certainly you have to be eligible to be able to be part of the program. Kind of reading some of the facts or frequently asked questions that were presented on this, doesn't sound like there's anything really physically that's going to stop us being eligible from a daycare standpoint. We've been using funding for the proper purposes and things like that, and we're financially viable. The one piece that's coming out that's probably the most interesting or critical piece is the retroactive refunding of fees. So refunding the fees have to be retroactive back to April 1st, when the agreement between Ontario and the federal government was established. And so the process for that is all kind of set out through the county. Once we enter into the agreement here, what will happen is the county will sort of fund us for our 25% rebate in fees, and then we in turn will fund and rebate those back to the families. So the process will kind of happen concurrently, but at the end of the day, we're not in a pocket. And so that's a positive thing. I think, so that's kind of that process, kind of start bringing those fees down. And so the end of the day, I think, as I understand it, is the relationship is any difference between what we charged and what the set rate is going to be from the province is being compensated through funding from the province through to the county. Does everybody understand that? The new fee funding. So one of the pieces too as well that I was a little bit concerned about was in terms of, and it's very vague at this point in time, is how do new fees get established and what is it going to be based upon? And it's going to be based upon sort of some inflationary factor, but the question would be are they going to be, I don't know what that number is going to be and what the basis of that number will be. So there's a bit of risk there, I suppose, in terms of, what that inflationary factor will be, but certainly going to be more than the 3% that we were kind of restricted at this year. based upon the county, Huron County funding agreement, but it'll be based on some type of inflationary index. I don't know how the province will establish it or and through the county. That's probably the only piece I don't know about. Bottom line is, I guess there's really, at this point, no financial impacts to the municipality being part of that $10 daycare program being brought through by the province. I think the value of it is that it's a certain benefit to the users of our daycare program in terms of that availability to have a reduced daycare cost. And that in turn may help with some of our employment situation, labor shortage.
Okay, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Brad, please. Brad, how do you know, or how does the daycare operator know that a person deserves to get the $10 daycare, that their income level, family situation, whatever the parameters are, entitles them to $10 a day? Like, how do you know they're not making 200 as the general manager of General Coach or something? May I ask?
Certainly, yes, certainly a good question, but I think there's no criteria to get that rate. It's provided basically across the board in terms of anybody who puts a child in daycare, whether you're making $30,000 a year or $300,000 a year, you're getting $10 daycare.
Seriously.
One of the differences is that the county does provide what I'll call a subsidy to low income earners who have financial difficulty with childcare. That's a separate program being funded through the county. And it is an application process, and there's a demonstration of financial need and things like that. But in terms of the $10 daycare, there's no financial criteria to receive it.
I thought this was modeled after the Quebec one, and it's a staggered rate depending on income, but I guess not. Okay.
Yeah, not based on what I understand. No.
Okay. Thank you.
The unfortunate part is whether you say it's the province's fault or whether it's the federal government's fault, but I heard as of yesterday, not one privately owned daycare service in the province has signed on to the program because they don't want to be part of it. So they're not offering the $10 a day. And I can kind of understand a little bit, because if the province is paying the lion's share, they're going to have a say in how much people get paid. They're going to have a lot more say in what goes on. And although it was a great sales pitch for the federal government to put the program out there, I think it got out there pretty quick, and there wasn't maybe enough thought into how do you get everybody on the same page going forward. For municipal programs, it's great for the families that use our service, no doubt about it. But we also in Huron East have some other privately run ones, and they won't receive that same advantage if they're not willing to sign on to it and follow the rules of the province. So unfortunately, there could be some inequities down the road, but we're not in a position to dictate any of that. That's something that the province and the feds are going to have to figure out in how to move it forward and get everybody working together. So I do have a recommended motion here that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East opt into the Canadian-wide early learning and childcare system, and that Council authorize the Mayor and Clerk to execute an addendum to the childcare service agreement with the County of Huron. Are there any other final questions from members of Council? Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Steffler, second by Councillor Deal, and all those in favor. And motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have employee exit interview process.
Yeah. So I wanted to, with some of the people leaving the municipality in recent days, there isn't an exit strategy in place within our employee handbook or policy based upon it. And it's a good organizational practice to do an exit interview process. I did it did have some conversations with Laura Van Stone, who is the human resource director for the County Huron. And just on the process of, there's a bunch of ways to kind of approach it. One is, of course, you want to have someone who's not the supervisor basically doing the exit interview. So, certainly I would do that for anybody, save and except for department heads. In terms of the department heads, typically, it's someone that you would delegate someone else besides myself to do that exit interview process. Sometimes it could be the mayor, although Mayor McClellan, in conversation with him, said he's not interested in doing that. So I did reach out to Laura Van Stone at the county to see whether Huron County Human Resource Services would be prepared to do that for any kind of department heads going forward. And she was more than willing to do that and quite happy to support us in terms of that process. So here basically outlines kind of the strategy. It's a valuable exercise. The one thing I guess I would caveat with is it's not a, don't look at it from a standpoint of, doing an exit interview to sort of target the supervisor, but look at it from a standpoint to identify whether there's any chronic issues with respect to the organization, chronic issues in terms of why that person's leaving. Could be, people are starting to leave and you're noticing a trend that people are leaving and taking positions with a higher pay, sort of a lateral move in terms of responsibility, but getting positions at greater pay. That might say to us organizationally that we need to look at our pay structure to make sure that we're competitive. You might find situations where someone's leaving the organization because of a toxic work environment, and so that helps you identify whether there's certain circumstances going on in that place that you need to try to address. Not enough support, not enough resources, too much work. Those are other reasons why people sometimes leave. So that's the purpose of it, is to do that exit strategy. So it's fairly simplistic in terms of the language I'm proposing to incorporate into the section I of termination, which it's called, which is maybe not the best word, but under resignation employee handbook, that the chief administrator officer will undertake exit interviews for all resigning employees, excluding department heads. For department heads and chief administrative officer, the municipality uses services of the County Huron Human Resource Department. The information being obtained will remain confidential and will be documented and summarized in the case department shared with the CEO and the mayor. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions council might have on that through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just before I go to questions, Ray, just to clarify something, I certainly don't think the mayor should be doing that job. Since I do own my own business, if you were to ask any of the employees that have worked for me for 15 or 20 years, they're going to tell you I'm not an HR specialist by any stretch of the imagination. So, and in fairness, if the mayor could do it, then any member of council can do it. And then if it's not consistent, I really felt that going to actual HR specialists outside of our own municipality was the right thing to do. So go ahead, Councillor Chartrand.
Thank you. Through you to Brad. Couple of things. I love the third party. I'm a firm believer in a third party interviewing exit. Where I have a little bit of a problem with is, so the CAO will undertake interviews of everybody who is resigning, who's not a department head. There could be, I say could be an issue where maybe that individual might have a personal issue with the CAO. And I do believe even when Brad does an exit interview with a resigning person, there should be another person in the room, such as maybe Trish and HR. Because if there is an issue between Brad and the employee, that employee is not going to open up and really tell Brad the reason why they're leaving. Either all exit interviews should be done third party, or if Brad does do an interview, there should be another person in that room. It shouldn't be just the two of them.
Can I make a suggestion on that, Councillor Chartrand? And I do understand and appreciate the point that you're making. I guess I have a concern about all exit interviews going someplace else. The county, certainly as a municipal partner, is willing to take on doing some of the work, but not that we have a great turnover, but if all municipalities in the county were to do this, that might almost add a body to the county staff. Could we have a form that when a person is resigning, that we just ask them to fill out the form, and the form would have that we do request an exit interview, and that it either be the CAO, or if they choose at that point, it could be a third party. And I'm hoping that that would satisfy that if they had a problem with the CAO, they would have another option. But if they didn't have any problem with the CAO, then I'm assuming the exit interview would be fine with the CAO, because they would be more than willing to share that information. Would that be acceptable?
In my personal experience as a manager for many years, I would never do an exit interview or an appraisal or talk to an employee unless there was a third party in the room. Plain and simple. It makes the third party feel comfortable, and it protects both people in there as far as he said, she said.
Okay, all right. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree with Councillor Chartrand. I don't know if it might be an option to look at the grid, and if an employee was at a certain level, implement what Councillor Chartrand recommended, and if not, it'd be CAO and someone else. But yeah, there has to be more than just the CAO. And I don't know how you'd go about it. Like you say, it's a valid point. You don't want everybody tying up valuable time.
Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I would agree with Councillor Chartrand, and I'd like to see that third person there. My second comment was, and it revolves around human resources with the County of Huron. Did we have an agreement set up with them that if one of our employees had an issue, say with their subordinate or a person above them, I should say, that they were able to contact human resources at the county level to discuss their issue? Did we have that set up? It seems to me we talked about this a couple of years ago, and I thought we had something, and I thought it was either you or maybe the deputy mayor had said that yes, arrangements were made if any one of our employees were feeling uncomfortable speaking with the person above them, that they were able to contact human resources at the County of Huron to discuss their issues. So I'd just like clarification on that. Thank you.
I can talk to that as well.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact wording, but I do know you are correct. Now, this was not for resignation. This was in case there was some other concerns in the workplace.
Yes.
And I do know that it did list a chain of command of the recommended people you should go to, but it also did, I believe, leave the mayor as one of the options that if you felt concerned. And then it was certainly my understanding that if something came to me, then again, I'm not an HR specialist. At that point, I would be asking for the assistance of the HR department at the county and use them as a resource. If in fact someone felt that they had to come to me, it couldn't go through anybody in the chain of command. I think that's the way it was worded in the handbook. I'm going to go to the CAO and let him respond to some of the comments here first.
Yeah, certainly in terms of the language, let's go back to the exit interview process. In terms of the language, I have no issue with incorporating sort of that's a third party, third party be included in that, where that, I don't think we need to be specific who it is, maybe just that there's a third party in that process. That suffice, Councillor Chartrand. I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't disagree with you.
I'm good with that.
In terms of Councillor McClellan's comments, I think it's probably in our workplace violence and harassment policy, but we're already going through the process of reviewing that and doing some training. So maybe we could try to refresh that and see what the language says, because that's kind of where it would probably fit in terms of that comfortable. If there's a if there's a situation going on and they're not comfortable with their supervisor in terms of approaching them, that there's alternative means to be able to get some support. And that might be where that is. You know, yeah. So we can maybe incorporate that as part of the revision we're going to do with it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Chartrand?
Yes, I went through the employee handbook, the latest employee handbook this past week, as a result of what Councillor McCollum said. And I remember distinctly, there was an issue and we sat in the personnel meeting and we said, and Brad Knight was in that meeting, and we said that we wanted a county hotline number, phone number, if in event an employee had a real problem with their immediate boss or felt there was, say, an harassment issue that was not being taken care of. And we were led to believe that that was going to happen and that we would tell all of our employees or have it in the employee handbook that that phone number would be in there. And I'm sure Councillor McCollum and Councillor Deal will remember that because we talked distinctly about that in a particular issue. And it is not in the handbook. There's no phone number. There's no language in there saying if you do have an immediate problem with your boss and you feel you want to talk to a third party, call this number. Now, this isn't something that's going to happen all the time. It's not going to take a huge time load. It's just all of our employees should be comfortable to know that they're not alone, that if they do have an issue with their immediate boss and they really do need outside help, that there is someone they can pick up a phone and talk to. And my understanding was that was going to happen. Now, maybe it fell through the cracks, Mr. Mayor, but we did talk about that, about doing that.
No, I don't remember the hotline part of it, Ray, but I do remember that it was supposed to be listed somewhere that if you were uncomfortable with going to your immediate supervisor, that there were other options for you. And I was at the end of that option list that if it wasn't another staff member you wanted to talk to, then you could contact the mayor directly. And certainly my follow through at that point would be getting assistance from HR. But
yeah,
I do remember the conversation. I don't remember the hotline part of it, but I think it is a good idea that we certainly get back and if we're going to be reviewing those processes, that we get something that everybody's comfortable with moving forward.
I agree. Thank you.
Mr. McRoberts, you had another comment? No.
I was just going to comment that that language might have been incorporated in the workplace harassment policy, which probably isn't quite in the manual, might refer to it, but so maybe the employee manual is not the right place for it, Councillor Chartrand. So I'll tomorrow morning, I'll take a look at the workplace harassment policy that's in our policy manual and see if there's something referred to it and just kind of circulate something out to council just so they know.
Okay.
And when we do get that implemented, we got to make sure that all of our employees are aware of that because from past history, when I used to hand out our employee handbooks or any safety handbooks to people, I didn't have a real good feeling that they actually read them.
Yeah.
We'd have to we would actually have classes with the employees to go over page by page so that we knew as managers, they knew what was in that book.
Yeah. One of the things we'll do as part of that process is when we revise our policies, we'll do training on it and all staff will have to sign off that they've received the training and are aware of the policy.
Okay. Thank you.
I do have a recommended motion here. I will just make a quick adjustment to it. And that is that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East approve the amendment to the employee handbook to include an exit interview strategy and include a third person in exit interviews. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Wilby and second by Councillor Chartrand. Any final comments or questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. We are down to, this is the clerk, 14th concession municipal drain tender results.
Yep, so the 14th concession municipal drain went through the court of revision and everything back in May. We had no appeals follow up from that, so I worked with RJ Burnside on getting together the tender. 2 submissions were received from Horst Excavating and Van Driel. Horst Excavating came at the closest amount as noted in the report at the $253,525. So the engineer with RJ Burnside also did put in his recommendation that Horst Excavated be awarded the tender.
Okay, so I have a motion here that the council of the municipality of Huron East award the contract associated with the 14th concession municipal drain to Horst Excavating Inc. for the amount of $253,525. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor McClellan and Councillor Deal, and all those in favor. And motion carries. Thank you. Council Review Advisory Committee.
So as a follow-up, I'm sure everybody remembers the history with this. This was our public advisory committee that was charged with reviewing the composition and compensation of council. So we did kind of outline in the recommendation, the committee did write this report. We do have Dan Fritz on the call. He was chair of the committee as well. Just if there's any committee specific questions that anybody might have. They met a period about 5 times from May till the end of June. Suggested different scenarios, reviewed many documents, all noted in the report. There was the public survey, which had 35 respondents. The report also outlines the responses that we received in that survey. And their final recommendation was that the 2026 term would look like a mayor, a deputy mayor that's appointed by council, 2 representatives that would be as a result of a newly formed ward combining Brussels and Gray, 2 representatives for a new ward that combines McKillop and Seaforth, and then 2 representatives for the current Tucker Smith ward, and 2 councillors elected at large. So the committee also did consider a lot of election at large and moving council to an election at large in the future. So they thought by introducing these 2 councillors at large, it would kind of give that feel for what an at large position would look like. I'm not sure if Mr. McRoberts has anything to add to that. Himself and I also, we sat on every committee meeting as a support to the committee.
Nothing further to comment. Jessica's covered it. Thanks.
Okay, this is a very long motion. I don't want to have to read it more than once, so I'm going to take all the comments and questions at this point in case I have to make adjustments to it. Councillor Chartrand.
Yes, first of all, I want to thank the committee for their work. I was very disappointed that there wasn't a whole lot of more public input than what there was. I don't know if there was any door knocking or phone calls, but 35 surveys is not a very good sample size of our entire municipality. And half of them thought that the current council size was appropriate. So there wasn't really a good public input, in my opinion. For that reason, I'm making a motion that the recommendation of the Public Advisory Committee be A, deferred to the new incoming council of 2022. B, that the new council hold 2 public meetings, one in the north and one in the south, to get more public input on this topic. And C, that the new elected council bring the current recommendations and possible new recommendations to be discussed at the March 7th, 2023 council meeting.
Okay, Councillor McClellan.
Thank you very much. I'd like to congratulate the committee for what they come up with. This is actually the first time I think this council has looked at anything else other than the 11 people or 12 people sitting around the table. So we got something different to look at here. I can't say I agree with it all, but it's certainly lots of good discussion there. I'm kind of on board with Ray a little bit. I'd like to have seen a little bit more public participation done with it, but I mean, you can't twist people's arms. I think 35 people that actually took the time to send in their comments are worth something, so they are. I do think it's something for the new council to look at. I was wondering if we could, this fall when the candidates meetings are scheduled, if we could maybe have a bit of an open house at each one. So some of the public from each ward could maybe have their say, either write down what they think or don't think either. So as to what they think of this. So that's all. Thank you.
I think that's a great idea because it's the people that actually show up for those meetings that actually follow and pay attention. Now, in fairness, I want to be honest, I didn't bother filling out the survey. I was certainly aware of it. I know all of council knew what my position was, so I figured I wanted the rest of the public to put it in. I don't know how many members of council bothered to put their comments in, but I did. I wanted to see the numbers climb with the public, not with council members. So anyways, but no, I like that idea of taking Ray's suggestion, but actually it kind of speeds up the process gathering a little bit faster. And we do normally have those meetings in all 5 wards. So that gives an opportunity for each of those wards to have input. And we could even mention it while there so that everybody's aware of it. So I think combining those 2 ideas sounds pretty good. Deputy Mayor, you had your hand up.
I would just be willing to second Councillor Chartron's motion.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, go ahead, Ray.
if I can say that the reason why I'm making this motion is, and giving a specific date, which is in the first year of the new council, is often we talk about it and it falls in the cracks. This time, we don't want to wait till the last council meeting before the deadline to talk about reducing the council. This will force and keep a record of what that committee gave. And now we have a deadline that Jessica will put on her calendar to make sure that this thing is discussed again in the very first 5 or 6 months of the new term. And any new information that we get from the all candidates meeting, or if we have the public meetings, as I suggested, all of that can be brought forward and have a really good, healthy discussion in the first 6 months of the new council.
Okay. And I don't have a problem with that. And I really like combining Councillor McClellan's suggestion there because
I agree.
It's the members of the public that show up for those meetings that actually pay attention to what's going on in the municipality. And those are the ones that we should be reaching out to. I think we should reach out to everybody, but unfortunately, I've knocked on a lot of doors where people just flat out tell me I don't even bother voting. So, it's bad enough that they don't. It's even worse when they're willing to tell you to your face they don't even bother caring enough to vote. So, Councillor,
got a motion.
Do you not think that this was advertised enough? Was this not the the committee that couldn't find members? Is that true? Is that true? This one was the one that it wasn't going to have the same amount of member, or what are you gonna say, Jessica?
Sorry, we just had the required amount of members. So we just received the 5 applications for the 5 membership that we advertised for. I do believe the last one came in close to the deadline of writing the report to get the applications in.
Right.
But there was just the 5 interested applicants that applied for the committee.
Right. I just don't think you're going to get the public consultation that you're looking for on this. And that's just my thought. I thought that the whole point of putting the committee together was to sort of direct us in some way moving forward. And I mean, I heard a lot of people talking about the committee and about what was going on. So I don't think that it wasn't advertised properly. I just think that there may be, I just don't think you're going to get the public, the answer that you want from the public is all I'm saying. I'm all up for it, but I think you're not going to get that answer. So.
Councillor Deal.
Thank you. And opposite to what Councillor Honest said, I spoke to people that knew nothing about the committee meeting and going over these items. Would there be a way of just to bring more people in, maybe to those meetings when we go out to the public, like when they're advertised that the meetings will be on a certain day? Would there be a way of, saying that, come out and give your opinion on this matter? It might draw more people in to discuss it publicly.
The public meetings.
Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have I guess, a couple questions. First is kind of regarding how was it advertised? So it was obviously using the community engagement platform, but where exact was that platform advertised through this process?
Go ahead, Brad.
In terms of the platform itself, it was obviously through social media, promoted fairly heavily through that. But even before we launched and after we launched, we've been putting, I guess we call advertisements in the local paper. I even reached out to Sean from the Citizen to make sure that there was a cover story to talk about the committee and what they were doing and what they were about. And that was actually in one of the Citizen issues. We advertised it. A lot of the, I guess I don't know what you call them, brochures and event advertisements that, saying, Huron East supports whatever organization. We were putting ads in there as well to promote the engagement platform, as well as making sure that everybody understood the council composition and compensation advisory committee's role and function. So I think we did a fairly good effort in terms of trying to push it out there, promote it. One of the things I would say is, public meetings. I mean, I've been to a lot of public meetings, and unless it's a really controversial issue, you don't typically get much of an attendance. It's going to depend a lot upon what day you're having it on, what's going on that particular time period. I don't have any issue with what you guys are proposing. I think the only question I would suggest maybe is trying to have public meetings through the winter is not the best strategy. So you might want to think about maybe moving that timeline down a little bit to say maybe the May meeting, and then try to do your public consultation sometime maybe in April, just from the standpoint that, when you get into snow and weather and things like that, having a public meeting can be somewhat disastrous. You don't want a snowstorm on the day you're having your public meeting and no one shows up.
That's good.
Just a suggestion.
Ray, I'm going to try and make a motion here, and you correct me if this is not appropriate then for what you were shooting for. That council receive the information from the Council Review Public Advisory Committee at this time, and that council present this information at the all candidates meetings prior to the 2022 election, and that along with this information and any information received from the public from those presentations, that in the first half of 2023, council review and move forward with their decision on any changes to council composition and remuneration.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor McClellan. And Jessica, did I say that slow enough? Did that work?
Yes, I've pretty much got the gist in what it was. Pretty much council municipality of Huron East received the information as presented from the Council Review Advisory Committee, and that council present this information at the all candidates meetings prior to the 2022 election, and at the recommendation along with any newly received information be brought forward to council in the first half of 2023 for review and decision.
Perfect.
And we can work out the details later. Something that might help getting more people involved is now that there's an actual recommendation, people may say they agree with it or don't agree with it. Before, it was just give your opinion. But sometimes when there's an actual, here's what we're thinking we should do, people then will sometimes step up and say, I agree or I disagree. So hopefully that works out. All right, all those in favor of the motion? And motion carries. Thank you. We are down to off-road vehicle and clean yard enforcement bylaws.
Sorry, that is me. I just got lost in my minutes here. So as we've mentioned previously, we are looking at the enforcement bylaws. One of my main tasks is to go through these and ensure that we're up to date with legislation, common practices, common terminology. One of my first things I noticed when I came on board was that we do have a lot of bylaws that are out of date, and some that aren't even, like in consideration, the noise bylaw isn't even a Huron East bylaw, it's still a Town of Seaforth bylaw. So we do have a couple of those. So this has been one of my side tasks, is cleaning these up. I started with the off-road vehicle and clean yard enforcement bylaws. ATV has been discussed at council previously, with the current one was attached, I believe, just in May or beginning of June as a reference point. So I did look at these bylaws. I reviewed area municipalities within Huron County and some kind of just directly outside of Huron County for consistency's sake, so that we're not doing anything out of the norm or causing some infractions or something that's not done when we're bordering a municipality right beside us. So these were all reviewed with them. I did review with our bylaw enforcement officer as well to get his input. So not only was there a lot more for clean yards, a lot more was provided in terms of where an off-road, what kind of refuge it is, drainage, sewage, things like that. Whereas before it kind of just said, you're going to keep your yard clean, was kind of how you could paraphrase it. And it talked about weeds, but it didn't go into detail of a lot of things. We now also incorporated maintain the boulevard of your house as well as part of the clean yards. What we did take out was the notice requirement. It's gone straight to an order from the bylaw enforcement officer. This is just more for more compliancy and a quicker turnaround on compliance rates. Having that notice, it's just extending the compliance. So you're not going to see a lot of action being done when a bylaw or enforcement has a notice. And then he has to wait X amount of days for that before he can issue an order, X amount of days for them to apply to the order. So we're just taking out that notice piece and skipping right to the order where they have 3 days to comply, just to speed up compliancy. I think I'm saying that word right, sorry. ATV, again, we incorporated new definitions of what an off-road vehicle is. Previously, it only addressed it an all-terrain vehicle, so we broke those down into the various forms. This was all gathered from the Highway Traffic Act as well, so took their definitions. And in terms of enforcement, I did add short form wording, so taking some actual fees that can be ticketed to people with any offenses. Those would come into effect actually after it gets approved by the ministry. So I've already been in contact with them and they've already reviewed this bylaw to give us some suggestions. So this is always up to speed with them. So it'd be just the process of getting that set fine list approved by them before those can actually be in force. In other terms of ATV, I just added more definition around where they can and can't go. Before it was just provincial highways within the municipality. So this talks more about not on churchyards, not on around a funeral happening, not on municipal grounds, kind of only getting to gas stations and stuff if you need gas, but really you shouldn't be on any of our properties without permission. I've kind of put these forward for first and second readings so that I did add them to, again, our engagement platform site in draft form. Try and gather more input and kind of put them out there opposed to just being on the agenda and getting the final reading. The plan will be to bring the final reading forward at the July 19th meeting so that if we have any comments on these from the public, then that could be included at that time as well.
Are there any questions from members of council at this point? Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to Jessica. Jessica, with the reading through the bylaw for the ATVs, you don't mention anything about helmet wearing, but is that part of the Traffic Act, is it?
Yes, it's part of the Traffic Act, and that's where it references that they'd have to comply with everything in the Highway Traffic Act. So things like insurance, seat belts, if they're seat belts, right. The vehicle has to be permitted, it has to be licensed, that sort of thing, and they have to wear a helmet. So that's all in the Highway Traffic Act.
Okay, well.
And I wasn't sure if one of the short forms actually had something about not wearing
yeah, and I
a
kind of
helmet,
looked through, but I hadn't seen it, but I may have overlooked it as well. So
yeah.
And the only other comment I always get on bylaw enforcement officers when somebody sends in a reported form, they never hear anything back. So I think we just need to enforce that somebody from the office at least lets that person know that it's making it through to the right person, and it just hasn't gone into midair. That's all. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. McRoberts.
Thanks. I just wanted to follow up Councillor McClellan's comment because that's a very valid comment. The process that we have right now in terms of report it doesn't really provide a lot of feedback. And actually, Councillor Morrison and I have had some conversations through email based upon some of those challenges. And I think we do need to revisit that sort of report it form and how it gets processed and how it gets tracked. And you know, we can't give a lot of information, but certainly it's a bit more better acknowledgement that it's been received and it's been assigned. That would probably suffice. I think that's probably the missing piece. And I think we just got to figure out, I don't know whether the system that we're using is the right system to do that. We may have to look at a different program, but certainly that's one of the pieces I think that we need to look at in terms of that reported form.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple, please, to Jessica.
Go ahead.
The 3-day, does that mean that our bylaw enforcement person is going to be proactive? He's not going to wait for complaints?
No.
No?
No, we still have to receive the complaint. We don't go out
That's
actively
fine.
looking. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then this clean yard, this doesn't replace the property standards bylaw.
No, and sorry, I was going to mention that in my actual report. It doesn't replace the property standards. That's still a separate bylaw, which is still going to be under review. We have a lot of amendments with that one that I want to make sure I have compiled and in front of me to make sure we're not missing any pieces when we go through that review of the property standards. And it's also different than the vacant building one that we talked about with economic development. That would be another bylaw as well.
Okay, so I asked about the property standards in March, I think. Is that coming soon? Revisiting it?
It is coming. I don't know how soon. Right now, kind of my next priority, like I mentioned, is going to be some of these bylaws that aren't Huron East focused, but small, like individual pre-amalgamation focused bylaws, things like our noise bylaw. We also have a refreshment vehicle bylaw that's still town of Seaforth and doesn't technically apply to Brussels or anywhere else. Those two I'd like to see come forward, and then property standards is on the list next. Like I said, property standards has had a lot of amendments, so I just want to make sure I have all those pieces together and I'm not missing one of them before I bring forward a new bylaw for property standards. You will see it within the next few months, though.
Thank you. I don't remember, you said this is replacing a bylaw from 2010. This is just a more comprehensive bylaw. That's why it's replacing the 2010 one?
Yeah, it's more comprehensive. So I've repealed the old ones instead of just doing amendment because there was lots of additions to it. It wasn't just a simple 1 or 2 clauses added. So I've repealed both the old ones to make the new clean yards and the new off-roads vehicle. And the old 2010 bylaws will be repealed. Both of them were 2010 bylaws.
Thank you.
Councillor Chartrand.
Yes, thank you. To Councillor McCollum's point he made, and I've had a number of people who put in their complaints online. Who opens that email up? Who in our office does that go directly to the bylaw officer, or does somebody in our office get that email and then forwards it? Because people are putting their complaints online. Who gets that?
Go ahead, Brad.
It goes into, I think it's called our citywide program. It could be called City Works. I can't remember the exact terminology. So it goes into our program, becomes something that gets logged and registered in there. And so notifications sent to the bylaw enforcement officer, to our public works administrative support staff. I don't get one at this point in time, but certainly could. And it certainly gets acted upon. And I think 90% of the time that works. The odd time I know that our bylaw enforcement officer mentions that, you know, he receives something in a unique way, but he doesn't, it hasn't come through on the citywide system. So that might be a little bit of the glitch there. I think
Yeah.
the biggest issue is that people are putting things in and they don't really get some sense that it's been received.
Well,
Right.
that's my point. They're saying, I go online and I fill out the form and I send it in. Can't somebody at least say to me in response, I have received your complaint in an email
Yeah.
right back to the person who sent it to begin with. That's all they're asking for, because
Yeah.
they're saying I put them in online, but I never ever know if they've received them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's certainly a process I think we need to fix.
Yes, for sure. Thank you.
Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Jessica, please. I just have, I guess, kind of a question regarding the Clean Yards proposed bylaw, specifically part 3.7.f, which talks about trees, plants, and vegetation. And that specific one basically says, you know, you can't plant, grow, maintain, or permit a bunch of different vegetation that overhangs a sidewalk, pavement, or traveled portion of any street or highway. Is that not almost extremely restrictive? I could probably think of hundreds of trees that overhang a sidewalk. I would almost say you could propose it to be overhang and like interfere, but I know interferes in them. I just think overhang, does that not almost restrict vegetation like of a large scale on front yard properties or corner lots that have two sidewalks that might be on the property?
I'm sorry, you said you were looking at 3.7?
3.7 point F, overhangs over any sidewalk, pavement, or traveled portion of any street or highway.
Yeah, and I think the point in that is mostly for pedestrian safety. Overhangs, you could be looking at over like the height restrictions, things like that. It's keeping the sidewalks clear. If somebody hurts themselves because of one of these trees, I don't know what could happen. It could fall over, they could trip, it could potentially still be the liability then of the municipality since it's on our sidewalk. What it's getting to the point is to maintain the trees that you have on your property so they aren't interfering with municipal property or the safety of any of those walking on the sidewalks, streets, and etc. No different than you may get branches and things on the road. As a driver, you also don't want to be going over them all the time too. So it's the responsibility of that property owner to make sure they're not they're not putting all their trimmings on the floor or on the ground on the sidewalk as well.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Morrison, this is a very important one to me. I'm taking shears with me on Thursday morning when I go for my walk because there's 3 or 4 that nail me every day, right between the eyes when I'm walking. It's very disconcerting. And I can see how it would impact other people as well as people with sight issues. It would be really sweet if we could put in there walnut and chestnut collection as well as part of 3.f. Anyway, yeah, it is to me, it's a real problem, Justin, and I imagine others as well. Thank you.
The only, I will get to you, Councillor Deal. The only comment that I really came up with, Jessica, was, and believe me, I like the fact that you're being so specific. It really helps when you clarify things like that. My only concern was when you talked about snow coming off a roof and landing on a walkway. And I started to think about different buildings in the municipality, and unfortunately, the only one I could think of that could happen on is a municipally owned building, and that's the Brussels Library. Is that if the snow were to fall off that roof, it falls on the entire walkway up to the entrance of the library, which is at the back of the building, and you walk from the front of the building to the back. So we're really going to have to watch our own roof if we're going to put this in place for other people. Councillor Deal.
Just a comment regarding emergency lines coming in or emergency calls coming in on weekends or outside of office hours. Who picks them up? Well, point in case, there about 3 weeks ago, there was a large tree come down over Brandon Road, and OPP, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and they were out touring around, and they tried several times to contact someone at the municipality. My son-in-law happens to go to work at 4 o'clock in the morning with a large tractor, and the police pulled him over to see if they would come up the road to move the tree off the road. So it's maybe not, this maybe isn't the appropriate time to comment on it, but it's just another thing that if there's an emergency line someplace, that OPP should be calling instead of just the office. Thanks.
Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I can speak to that just from my own experience. I think if it's not the case here, usually what happens is a list of people are provided to the OPP in terms of contact information. So that would probably be, first off, I would say probably being one of the two district supervisors for Public Works, Barry himself, and probably my name as well would be someone I would suggest they have in terms of contact information for those situations to make sure that the appropriate people can be organized out there. Now, the OPP, that's my experience working with other OPs and other OPPs in other districts. Certainly, I can set that up through the detachment commander and make sure they have that contact information. In terms of the number calling the office, I've asked this question too, and personally, I got to admit, I haven't called it to test it, but it does have an emergency call number. Depending upon the emergency, I believe water goes to the on-call, water or sewer go to the on-call person for the water and sewer systems. And then Public Works, I think for the most part, goes to the manager of Public Works, and then he distributes that out, but I could be slightly wrong on that, but that's what the process should be. And then that's responded to accordingly. But in terms of the OPP, I think it's important that they have direct contact information because circumstances there could be an accident where a stop sign's knocked out and that stop sign needs to be replaced immediately. And under the Highway Traffic Act, a missing stop sign is classified as an emergency. It needs to be responded to, within 24 hours or less than 24 hours. I can't remember the exact time frame. Yeah, certainly. So I'll speak with Mr. Mills. There he is there. And Barry, maybe you can speak a little bit to it there as well in terms of what the process is, but that's how I understand it.
Yeah, if I can, Mr. Mayor, just a quick follow-up. I think Brad summarized that pretty good. The OPP does have all our contact numbers and they do get used every now and then. I believe probably something slips through or I've had calls for Central Huron. I've had calls for Blue Water. They call the wrong area for maybe what a problem is outside the jurisdiction. So, we always try to help the OPP out if we know where it's for.
Okay, I have a motion here that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East consider first and second readings for the off-road vehicle and clean yard bylaws. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Deal, and all those in favor. And motion carries. Thank you. Correspondence.
Sorry, Mayor, I think we just need that motion that we accept. Council receives the reports from municipal officers as presented. It would be from the CAO and the clerk.
Okay, I thought I was doing pretty good. I found the other motions in the bigger package. I still don't have that one. Okay, so I just need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Morrison, second by Councillor Wilby. The council accept the municipal officers' reports from 1, the CAO, and 2 from the clerk. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll go to correspondence.
So 2 items on your correspondence here. The first one's a request from the Brussels Homecoming Parade coordinated for road closures on July 30th and July 31st for the parade, and July 31st for the classic car show. And there's a motion, I believe Jessica has speaks specific to the times and dates that they require.
Yes, sorry,
Um,
the motion would just be that we approve the temporary road closures in Brussels, 10:30 a.m. till 1:30 for the parade staging and 12 to 2 for the parade route on July 30th, and that the request for the road closure on July 31st from 12 to 4 for the classic car show.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Wilby, second by Councillor On, and all those in favor. And motion carries. Thank you.
The second one is a letter of support from the municipality of Shania. It's actually a letter of support for the corporation, the city of Brantford, in terms of release of all federal provincial documents related to the former Mohawk Institute Residential School. Pretty straightforward in terms of what they're looking for. I don't know, we have two motion options, whether council wants to note and file or whether council wants to support.
I'd like to make a comment. I guess my concern is that they're asking for the information to be released. But who are we releasing it to? Are we releasing it to everybody? And why would we? To me, that seems like a waste of time and money. If they have a specific request for something in their area, then I think it's appropriate if they have a need to go and fight for it. I have a problem sticking my nose in the upper level government of what they release and don't release when it's got nothing to do with Huron East. That's my personal opinion. If other council members have a different view on it, that's fine. Deputy Mayor, were you trying to comment there?
I've always been of the impression, Mr. Mayor, that the First Nations want the information released to them so they can follow up on things. That's been my understanding. They want the information released to them, not the broad general public, just to the specific First Nation.
Okay. Is there any way to clarify that, Brad? Because I don't read that in the letter.
No, I didn't either, but that's my understanding.
Certainly we can follow up with, probably in this case, probably best to follow up with the city of Brantford to see whether or not what their intent is and come back, bring this back at the next meeting.
Okay. All right. Is everybody fine with that then? Yeah. Okay. So we don't need to read a motion then at all? No. Okay. Carry on. Nothing under unfinished, nothing under municipal drains, planning, down to council reports. I'll go to the deputy mayor, county council report.
Finally, tomorrow, we are passing a bylaw with charger crew to go forward with our charging stations in Brussels and Seaforth and Goderich and Huron County. What else did we have? Fiber optic, there was a presentation that I'm thinking by, is it 2025, Mr. Mayor, that 95% of Huron County is going to have fiber?
Yeah, I think it was actually 2026, and I think it's actually anticipated up to 97% of all residents in Huron County will have last mile fiber to the door, which is an impressive number. And I can say that Huron County never would have got here if Huron County Council hadn't actually put a lot of funds towards it and partnered with the local cotels. And because we did that, that also got us additional funding from both the province and the feds, because I think, or we think, what it really came down to was when we put our money where our mouth was, they realized how important it was to us, and they even upped our programs. So by 2026, Huron County will be one of the best fiber optic served places in the province, which that's important. So
there also is still a considerable amount of development. Exeter is looking at a 58 acre parcel, single family and multiple, and Godrich has one on the books for 1,200 units.
1,229.
Yeah, just amazing.
Yeah.
Still go, go, go for Huron County.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Are there any other boards, committees, or meeting seminars that anybody has any comments on? Okay, seeing none. Are there any requests by members of council at this time? Councillor Chartrand.
Yes, I guess you could call it unfinished business too. At the last council meeting, you had committed to me, you were going to come back with a report about Seaforth losing their Seaforth Manor. About they were going to go to Godrich and the concern that the citizens had here in Seaforth. You have any update on that?
No, other than the conversation that I had with Lisa the very next day, and we have not got together again since then. I know I've been busy, and I know she's been busy, so we haven't nailed down. Now, she did at that meeting I had with her commit that she wanted to come and actually sit down at town hall and have a meeting with Brad and myself, but I have not followed up with that at this point. So I don't have any more of an update other than what I can tell you that she did confirm to me that her understanding also was that the province does not consider this a underserviced area. So putting more beds in here is not on their radar at the moment. And even if I go back to that economic development report that we received tonight, part of the problem is that there's still a shortage of RNs and PSWs, even in the area here. Huron View, which is in Huron East, can't even get enough RNs and PSWs to service it. So it will be unfortunate when and if that home does close. But if that home were to close right now, I'm going to say there are jobs in Huron East that are available to those employees. But
It's more than just the jobs. It's the, we get more and more people calling with concerns that their loved ones are there. It's close and accessible to the town. And what's really confusing is Lisa's boss, the premier, on his campaign kept on talking about adding 3,000 more beds.
30,000.
30,000, pardon me,
Yeah.
30,000. Well, where are they going? They're going to go all in Toronto so he can get elected in again next time? Like, where
Yeah.
are these 30,000 beds going?
The I don't know the actual geographics of where they're going, but I do believe the province does have specifics of where they believe those underserviced areas to be. But I do not have that answer for you right now.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any?
Bernie?
Are there any? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Steffler.
Yeah. I don't know if you recall, I asked Keith McRobert or Keith McIntosh. I had a meeting when we were meeting over here regarding the matter, that when we offered them free land and whatnot, we went around to all the service shops and whatnot, letters of support. Keith McIntosh said in our meeting that beds could not be transferred from one municipality to another because we had asked at that time, and so we're not interested in upgrading. They want to move their beds to see. Keith McIntosh said in that meeting that they could not transfer the beds from one, so we couldn't have Hensel. I'm on the board of the family health team. We have not heard one word back from anybody that they're moving the beds from Seaforth to Godrich. Now, who the hell is telling the truth?
I don't think they were talking about the beds moving from here to Godrich. Godrich got approval for what's being built there. The question was because the house here in Seaforth may be closing because it will no longer meet the provincial standards. The question was going to be, what happens at that point? Do we lose the beds altogether? Or is there an opportunity to build something else here that would include those beds and possibly include more?
We have not heard anything. And Kelly Buchanan has talked to them twice, written to them. We have not heard anything. You know, are they scared to tell us that they're not going? You know how many jobs that affects here in East?
Yeah.
65 jobs.
I remember the exact meeting that you're referring to, Councillor Steffler. I was there also, and you're absolutely correct. He did notify us that there was no authority to move beds from one district to another.
But they did mention that they're moving Seaforth beds to Godrich. So you can't say one thing and do another.
See, I don't remember him saying they were moving the Seaforth ones. I thought they were just expanding.
And on their thing now, not back then, now, just when they announced Godrich, Seaforth is going to Godrich. Why the hell couldn't Godrich came to Seaforth?
Okay. I was not aware of that announcement. Councillor Chartrand?
The issue has been and will be coming in to us very quickly that we all know about it, unless the government changes the date. 2025, our Seaforth Manor doesn't meet the requirements. That's roughly 2.5, 3 years from now. So either they're going to shut it down or they're going to extend the date until they can make a decision what to do. And that's what's got the community so upset right now, because like Councillor Steffler said, they're all hearing that our beds are going to Godrich.
Okay, then if I can ask the CEO just to make a note of what Councillor Chartrand commented on there, and if we can bring that up with Lisa, and I'll try touching base with Lisa again later this week and see if she's got an update of when she was hoping to come around for a visit. Go ahead, Joe.
Godrich facility is worse than Seaforth facility. They wouldn't meet with their requirements for 2025. So, like,
Southridge is building a new one.
did Godrich offer them free land? I don't think it's even going to be in Godrich. It's going to be in Godrich Township.
Yeah, I don't know what the arrangements were for the new facility going to Godrich.
It's pretty disheartening when we went to all that. We had 3 meetings with them. And we put our money where our mouth was, said, here's free land up here and everything.
Yep.
And then we don't even hear back from them. Like, are we non-existent? Like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll see if we can get any answers when we have our sit down.
Thank you.
Are there any notice of motions from members of council right now? Seeing none, any announcements? I'm going to put in one here, and I probably should have put this at the beginning with the mayor's remarks. Both the deputy mayor and myself attended an event. What was this? Was it last week, Bob, or the week before, when we welcomed the Syrian
Tuesday last week.
families to both Canada and Huron East. So 5 members. They've I think it was 6 years ago the process started. In March of this year, they actually received their Canadian citizenship. It was through 4 separate church groups that did the sponsorship, brought them over, has worked with them, and they have acclimated very well into the community. She now works for the Avon Maitland School Board. He works as a general coach in Hensel. They live in Huron East. They live in Egmontville, and they are very happy to be here, and we were happy to welcome them. So that was a nice event. We are down to the bylaws. Can I get hang on a second, maybe I've got more paperwork here.
They probably list a little bit different motions than what's actually on the agenda.
Okay.
Do you want me to read these for you, Mayor?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the first one, that it be hereby resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 31, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, and 53 for 2022. I can list them all for you. Bylaw 31 is the 14th concession municipal drain. That's getting the final reading. Bylaw 47 to temporarily close a portion of Main Street, County Road 12, and Goonlock Street in Seaforth. Bylaw 48 to appoint a drainage superintendent and repeal Bylaw 17, 2018. Bylaw 49 to amend the child care and early years programs and service agreement with the County of Huron and amend Bylaw 94, 2021. Bylaw 50 to permit and regulate the operation of off-road vehicles on municipal highways within Huron East and repeal Bylaw 63, 2010. Bylaw 51 to regulate the maintenance of land known as the Clean Yards Bylaw within Huron East and repeal Bylaw 21, 2010. 52 to temporarily close roads and portions of roads in Brussels for the Brussels Homecoming Parade and Classic Car Show. And 53 to confirm the proceedings of council.
Mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor and Councillor Deal. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you.
And now we get to read them all individually. So that it be hereby resolved that bylaw 31, 2022, a bylaw for the 14th concession municipal drain be given final readings and signed by the mayor and clerk and the seal of the corporation affixed here too.
Mover and a seconder. Councillor McClellan, Councillor Deal. Any comments or questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you.
That it be hereby resolved that bylaw 47, 2022, a bylaw to temporarily close a portion of Main Street, County Road 12, and Goonlock Street, Seaforth, be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the mayor and clerk and the seal of the corporation affixed thereto.
Mover and a seconder. Councillor Chartrand, Councillor Morrison. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you.
That it be hereby resolved that bylaw 48, 2022, a bylaw to appoint a drainage superintendent and repeal bylaw 17, 2018, be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the mayor and clerk and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto.
Mover and a seconder. Councillor Wilby, Councillor Steffler. All those in favor? And motion carries.
That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 49, 2022, a bylaw to amend the child care and early years programs and service agreement with the County of Huron and amend bylaw 94, 2021 be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto.
Mover and a seconder. Councillor Chartrand, Councillor Deal. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you.
That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 50, 2022, a bylaw to permit and regulate the operation of off-road vehicles on municipal highways within Huron East and to repeal bylaw 63, 2010, be given first and second readings and signed by the clerk and the seal of the mayor and the clerk and the seal of the corporation affixed thereto.
You just said first and second, not final.
Yes, so
That's
that's, we're doing the final readings at the next council meeting just to get these draft bylaws more public awareness and review before we get final readings.
Just a little
Yeah.
technical thing. We don't sign and seal them then, right? If it's only the second reading?
We do sign as first and second read,
Okay,
and sign and seal that, and then we sign them again with the final reading.
I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
Although our mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Morrison, Deputy Mayor, and all those in favor. And motion carries.
Okay, that it be hereby resolved that bylaw 51 of 2022, a bylaw to regulate the maintenance of land known as the Clean Yards Bylaw within Huron East and repeal bylaw 21, 2010 be given first and second readings and signed by the mayor and clerk and the seal of the corporation affixed thereto.
Moved by Councillor Dalton, second by Councillor On. All those in favor? And motion carried. Thank you.
That it be hereby resolved that bylaw 52, 2022, a bylaw to temporarily close roads and portions of roads in Brussels for the Brussels Homecoming Parade and Classic Car Show be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto.
Mover and a seconder. Counselor Morrison, Counselor McClellan, all those in favor? Motion carries.
Do you want me just to jump into the confirmatory one for you? Or is there anything else?
No, I think I can take care of this one. Is there anything that council wanted to bring up before we get ready to adjourn here? Go ahead, Counselor Steffler.
I missed the closed session meeting today. We were without hydro, no computer.
No. All right. If you need any update, you could stop in the office and get an update from either the clerk or the CAO and go from there. But I'm going to tell you that council was in complete agreement with the decisions that were made, so it wasn't anything controversial.
Oh, no, I agree with that. Just thought you'd think, where did he go? I didn't have any hydro, so I couldn't turn the computer on.
Okay. Not a problem. So can I get a mover and a seconder for the confirmatory bylaw? Moved by Councillor Deal, second by Councillor Wilby. That bylaw 53, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council passed by the clerk and the mayor and all that signage, and I don't have it in front of me, so sorry. All those in favor? And motion carries. This one I do know. A mover and a seconder for adjournment. Councillor Chartrand, Deputy Mayor, that at 9:06 p.m. the meeting do now adjourn until, and I do not know the date of the next one.
July 19th.
July 19th, okay. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you very much.
Good meeting.